You're like, okay.
It's been fantastic.
So during COVID, it was all remote, which was harder for me because I have 2 dogs and a cat, and they're not particularly well behaved. So now that I'm able to go back in the studio, it's better for me.
Great. Cool. All right, we're in the green room.
All right, well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Green Room, and happy August. It's a new month.
I know, that's incredible. No, but listen, this is really a special green room. Listen, we're at 103, which is crazy green rooms, but this one actually has, I will say, the guest that I have known the longest.
I know we've had some that you've known a long time.
I have, but Rachel Kaufman, who's joining us today from Atlanta. Listen, the Kaufman family and the Gordon family go all the way back to Rachel's grandfather and my dad being fraternity brothers at Ohio State all the way in the back. And then Rachel's grandmother, who just passed, Estelle, and my mother were literally the best of friends. Drank iced coffee and played, many a mahjong game and other such things. So we go way back. Right. And then Craig, Rachel's father, and I were best of friends. And, he's out in California. Hello, Craig, Cindy.
I feel like you're the reason I'm here. Didn't you introduce my parents?
Exactly. And really? I did it right. So my ex Robin was best friends with Cindy, who is Rachel's mom, and Craig was my best friend. So we introduced their parents.
Oh, so she's the reason you're here. Oh, that's awesome.
And grew up in Solon, Ohio with my kids. Want to give a shout out to Jacqueline, who will watch, and Carly and Josh, and of course, Rachel and her sister Abby. They rode bikes together with my kids in the neighborhood and everything. Awesome. So we go way back, but now, seriously, she has developed into an unbelievably accomplished defense attorney in Atlanta, Georgia.
Superwoman. Good girl.
Unbelievable. And listen, Rach, we always start with some talk about politics and social activism. And listen, Kansas, who would have ever imagined? It's like Dorothy herself sat there and clicked her heels together or something, and somehow has risen out of there this vision of social activism. Seriously,
just grassroots, man.
But being in Georgia, Rach, just to start there, you have your own things going on. And what's your outlook of what's coming up in your senatorial races? And I'd love to hear your little Herschel Walker, opinions and stuff like that. I know you're on the progressive agenda side. That's easy.
Yeah, so I'm definitely on the more progressive side. I really don't consider myself a liberal, because sometimes I'm so far left, I'm right. So it gets confusing for people. However, if you watch any YouTube, you'll see tons of political commercials, Herschel Walker, Warnock, back and forth. I live in a neighborhood where almost everybody is liberal, and when I moved from Cleveland originally 12 or 13 years ago, I was upset about having to give up my voting registration in Ohio, thinking that my vote would not count in Georgia. When the presidential election happened, I was shocked, but in the best of ways. I couldn't believe that we flipped our state blue.
I can't either. That was incredible.
Right. And that's that to me was Trump literally stepping in an ultimate pile of poop.
Well, and I have to give a shout out to Stacey Abrams. I think Stacey Abrams rallied her peeps big time to get that turn of blue. I think she did an outstanding job of and also I have to say the African-American women in Atlanta, I think those girls came together in a big way, and they still are.
They may still prosecute forward with Trump and Giuliani and all the the clown car of idiots.
The last night I saw, and I'm friends with DA Fani Willis. I know her pretty well. She responded to a post from Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was, I guess, on Twitter. She was tweeting something about how Fani's wasting government money, looking into prosecuting Trump. And then Fani wrote back, it's just, politics are ugly and they're dirty. And in Georgia, I guess the hope is that if we can get good people in the Senate and then get Stacey Abrams as our governor, things might change. But what I can say is that, and when I tell people that hate, or that hated Trump, I don't feel like our lives were that much different. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't feel like in the criminal justice land, there's been much of a change between Trump and Obama and Biden. So the truth is that these people just talk a good game and not much changes anyways. Herschel Walker's a joke, but that he's I'm not really expecting if he gets elected, I'll be in shock. He's lied about just about everything, but I feel like a lot of Republicans ignore lies and double down. So we'll see.
Right.
But
that Alex Jones trial yesterday or whatever's going on, Rach, as you watch these trials, and I would suspect it's going to come up on Court TV, as will the Brittany Griner decision that I think will be coming down over the next 24 hours. Even I think there's a certain time frame that something's happening in Russia about it. But no, the lies that this Alex Jones has just been telling, and the judge literally having to say to him, sir, you're under oath. Let's make sure that you do tell the truth. I mean, this is not your show. When you're on your show, you can say whatever the hell you want, and it can be regarded as truth in your little whatever universe, Earth. I think they called it on Morning Joe this morning, Earth 2. Yeah. There's Earth 1 and Earth 2. Yeah.
They don't.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is from Georgia, of course, right?
Yes, she is.
Indeed, she is. Indeed, she is. Listen, back up for a second. I want everybody to see your Compassionate Cannabis Clinic t-shirt, right? So if you're running around Atlanta,
I'm in Chicago this afternoon, but next time I go to Atlanta,
you'll see him somewhere. And Rachel just told me that she has her pin on her bag.
I wear it to court.
So tell us what you do in Atlanta, Rach, because of course I know you've been a defense attorney, which means that you've been defending, people that aren't represented or surely underrepresented for pretty much your entire career. I always remember when Rachel told me she was going to be an animal rights attorney. And hang on, I want to hear that side of your life, because I know you also have a fantastic program that involves, pets and the incarcerated and stuff like that. And I don't want to mislabel it, But my point is, and I always remember her dad telling me, she wants to be an animal rights, attorney. I said, who the hell is going to pay for that? I said, I don't know, Craig. When I went to emergency medicine, my dad said that was crazy too, So you forged a fantastic career in Atlanta, founded your own law firm, right? Kaufman Law. So tell us what you do and how that all developed, because and then we'll kind of get into the Brittany Griner side of things and stuff.
Okay, like that. This is very exciting. So I wanted to be an animal lawyer. I started the Animal Law Club at Emory Law School. I interned for the Humane Society of the United States before I went to law school. I've always been very passionate about animal welfare and animal rescue, and in my free time, I've always volunteered at dog shelters. I have 2 very large dogs here. I like to keep 2 at a time. I have a cat too. Anyways, during coronavirus, so prior to coronavirus, I was trying back to back, homicide case, rape case. I didn't really have time to volunteer. I was just going full force. But then during COVID, when everything shut down, I was looking for a volunteer opportunity. I knew that Canine Cellmates had been which is a program in the jail that rehabilitates men by teaching them how to use positive reinforcement dog training with dogs from the shelter. They had to stop because the jail wasn't allowing people in during the pandemic. So these dogs all ended up being put in boarding facilities, and I ended up meeting with the director. Everyone thought COVID wasn't going to be that long, but it was a year in, and we're how are we going to keep our program going? Long story short is there's this organization called Best Friends. It's a national organization for animal welfare. They had a building that they gave us a very generous grant. We took over a dog shelter, and we worked with DA Fonnie Willis and some other people to agree to do a alternative sentencing program outside of jail. So now what we're doing is actually getting guys out of jail to come to our program. They live at home and they come 4 days a week for the first 90 days. And it kind of scales back because it's a year-long program. And they do anger management, parenting class. Actually, my mom was in town last week and we taught together, which was really fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we do
sure. I mean, your mom's been on the social work side, of course, for her entire career, and that's got to be really gratifying to see that. And I can't imagine that some of these people coming in are not in for minor drug offenses, stuff like that. I mean, you'll tell us, but you've lived, of course, your entire professional career with seeing a lot of the injustice that's involved in the justice system. And of course, a lot of it, involving cannabis. I would suspect Georgia still has their rules and laws, and they have a nascent medical cannabis program up there, right?
I was actually supposed to be in court this morning for a girl she's charged with bringing like 25 pounds through the airport.
Okay.
Let her, and they make a big deal about the amount. And I'm like, you know what? Like, that's how it becomes like the ounces that people buy. So I don't really accept that as like, just because there's more of it, that you think that she should be punished. I mean, the prosecution of marijuana is very much alive in Georgia. Maybe not in Atlanta as much, but they'll use.
Is there a difference between possessing an ounce and possessing 25 pounds in sentencing guidelines, I'm sure, and other such stuff? I mean, is that actually laid out?
I mean, yeah, it's laid out. I just don't accept any of it.
I got it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care. Like, I don't care that it was 25 pounds. I feel like that they stole that. I feel like it's like institutionalized theft to take medicine like that and like stockpile it. And the joke is that they say that they destroy it. Like, I'm always like, what do you do with it? They destroy it. That's what we do with it. That's what everybody does with it, you dummy. Like,
I can only imagine existing within the legal system. Ruta and I'll make no comments this week about that. No, seriously. And I've always been fascinated by, how you exist on the financial side and how you get paid by, literally those that, probably don't have the means to do so. And we don't need to get into it. But my point about the Brittany Griner thing is this. Listen, whatever she had, and she surely wasn't smart being, in the Soviet Union, in Russia with it. That wasn't smart. She plays professionally there. She's gone back and forth. I guarantee you more times than that.
Oh yeah.
With those vape pens. She had a medical card, I think, from Arizona, right? Which of course doesn't mean squat there, nor in fact would it mean squat in Washington, DC. Well, maybe DC because they have their own silly little rules, but other airports, say in North Carolina, right? If she would have been stopped, right, with products. So, or Georgia, of course, would be the discussion. So we'll see what happens with that. My regret is that we really haven't had the debate medically about what it is that she had. The vape carts that she had, I even heard one was a 1-to-1 and had CBD in it as well, right? She's a professional athlete. There's wear and tear. There's chronic inflammatory conditions. She's, of course, gay and married, operating in Russia, which doesn't really care much for that, So she has her innate anxieties, as we all do, and right to use a plant-based medicine that is safer for her than the Toradol shots they would give her, okay, or the narcotics, okay? What if she had been stopped at the Russian border with 200 Percocets that she didn't necessarily have a prescription for, Rach? What's your opinion on that one, right? Would that have been viewed differently because they're a recognized pill-based opiate? So, and listen, there's plenty of people, of course, in the States for similar offenses, towards Brittany Griner's. Oil has always been regarded as different than flower, right? Almost like crack cocaine can be viewed differently as flower cocaine, or as powdered cocaine. Yeah. And I'm sure you've dealt with that on many a case.
Such a joke. I mean, really, the whole thing to me is such a joke for a number of reasons. I think it sucks that, I don't know if it was a canine that ended up sniffing it or that's what happened. I don't really know how they ended up finding it on her. I take issue with the fact that like marijuana smells, it's like garlic. It's like, I'm so like, okay, geniuses, you smell it. You can't smell pills in the same way. And so it's completely unfair to that extent.
Well, it's gotten in the way because law enforcement, when they stop you, if they smell what they think is cannabis with THC in it, and this has come up in Florida, so they can't do that.
In Spain, my husband was arrested.
Right.
Where?
Just a week ago, right. In Spain. My husband and his friend were driving. Unfortunately, the friend was driving and he was a little high and he went the wrong way. Anyways, they both got arrested because he had a joint in the car in Spain and it's illegal. But they gave him just a $40 fine and they said for 24 hours you can't drive. And then they do have to go.
I'm like, that's at least
sensible.
Yeah.
Like it's not like, I think I found that sensible comparatively to some of the laws that we would have for like that minor kind of offense in a state that.
Yeah, but didn't you tell me that they actually made Nordine do
Oh,
a
they
pee
do.
test?
They do tests. They tested both of them. So Nordine got off.
And he's a non-user,
he
so
was
he didn't
non-user,
have
so
any
he didn't-
THC
No,
in
but
his
his friend,
urine.
no, but his friend did.
Right.
So, and the friend was driving, so that's
Well,
why.
that's a whole
they
nother
just did a test.
situation with THC. Is that like, I'm so sorry. Like, I feel like there needs to be a class action, like a civil rights class action as it relates to drug testing. It is completely unfair that because some of us use marijuana and our bodies don't flush it out like a poison and it stays there, like I'm punished for that. I mean, that makes no sense. There are tens of thousands, maybe 100,000s of people in the United States that are currently incarcerated for marijuana or for testing positive while they're on probation. It's like, I'm going to be positive, but it doesn't say anything about what I'm doing. I mean, it's not like a blood alcohol test, a blood alcohol.
Listen, here's the test case, Rach. It's a 65-year-old surgeon who's developed a fine tremor, who could put a 1-to-1 patch on his wrist, and then the tremor goes away, and he's able to continue to operate safely and productively, right? So that's utilizing cannabis as medicine, which has nothing to do with what. And listen, this is my 30-second elevator speech, and I use it all the time. And I think very pertinent, of course, to what you get involved with every day. It's not just the THC in the cannabis plant that we should be focusing on in this day and age of medicinal cannabis. Once again, just kind of bringing the Brittany Griner issue back into play. For her, and in many ways, or as Tommy Chong may say, it's all medicine, but for her specifically, she had a medical card. It truly was medicine. There were other cannabinoids, not just the THC. It was in a route of delivery, an oil product that for her, an athlete, has been appropriate. You have to look at Michael Phelps and other Michiganders such as yourself, right?
You can look at everybody. I mean, does anybody else want to be drug tested? I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
well, listen, the job protection side, you as an attorney, just so you know, I mean, it's on my top list of what I discuss with every single patient, that as we go forward towards legal adult use here in Florida, 4 to 6 years, you in Georgia,
10.
6 to 20 years, who knows?
Yeah.
But the point is, the holding of a medical card until your employment accepts or your licensure accepts. For example, I know what the Florida law says for doctors. They have to be able to show impairment at work and danger to patients for cannabis use to become an issue for them. And who could disagree with that? That's for alcohol. That's for
that's what it should be.
opiates.
That's the only thing it should be.
Of course, that's for your dog pissing on your leg in the morning when you go to work. Okay, seriously, impairment can come from anger, right? So impairment can come from a lot of things. And if I ever walked into an emergency room impaired, then, and Rach, listen, so Rachel in Solon, Ohio, growing up with my kids as they did, was a witness to really the lifestyle that, I lived, in the 12-hour shifts and the picking up, everybody. I was able to drive people to places where other parents, when they couldn't, because I was off, that day. Could have just been after 3 hours of sleep, picking everybody up for the noon, field trip or whatever, But cannabis use is interesting, to that extent. And, as Rachel said, she outed herself as a user of cannabis at a level where she does her thing with excellence, with integrity, with the trust of her clients. Listen, I'd like to see state representative or state senator Rachel Kaufman, in Florida. I mean, we need your generation with your passion. Okay. No, seriously.
To be honest about use, I feel like there's a lot of people who, I don't know, you can say you pound alcohol, you pound drinks, but you can't admit to like enjoying marijuana. And
listen, you've seen it all, and I won't mention, anybody specific by name from Solon or Orange or where you grew up, but every single one of your generation, my lovely daughter, Jacqueline, who I know is watching, if not now, but will be later. You've all lost, several in your zone, in your life, to narcotic overdose, right? To depression and suicide, alcohol, right? Auto accidents, gun violence. This generation, Ruta, I always say, when we ducked and covered when we were growing up in school. It was because the Russians, they ran a nuke down on us. But this generation, when they hit a school safety drill, we're dealing with what they knew could ultimately actually happen. And I can't imagine on the gun violence side, Rach, that you haven't seen some things,
especially in Atlanta,
and been involved in some cases, that have been unbelievably horrific.
There are guns in the hands of children. I actually feel like parents should be presumed, until their kids are like at least 21, presumed somewhat responsible for their children's crazy actions. You can't go to the mall anymore because there's like these like droves of children with guns. I'm anti-gun. I don't feel like I need a gun, but I do see how guns put into the hands of teenagers and also police. I'll talk about that for a second, but these young kids are just out here thinking that that's how you problem solve. It's like a socially acceptable way to solve your problems.
It's a generational thing that's just been that right, and social media.
Our generation, again, we would never have thought of carrying a gun to a mall. Never.
Oh yeah, no, now they take pictures of it, they put them on Instagram. And I have a lot of cases involving social media where these young kids they want the likes, I'm like, I like likes too, but I'm not putting guns with lasers on it in my pictures and that kind of stuff. But lately, what I've seen is, I was raised by a mother. She's not going to hit me to tell me not to hit somebody else. We live in a country where the police shoot people and tell people not to shoot each other. And when the police shoot, they're the biggest gang on the block. And I've had multiple clients shot, killed by police. And it's never just one or two shots. We're talking, I had a kid shot at a mental hospital the other day, 5 times shot at a mental hospital. Why are police responding with guns to a mental hospital where a guy, he was accused of trying to escape, but he was in a mental hospital. They shot him 5 times, once in the back, just crazy stuff. I know of another.
But do you think just in defense of the police officers, do you think it's one, either a lack of training or 2, sheer fear? Because I think I don't know, if I was a police officer and just with the media coverage and the barrage of somebody is shooting and there's active shooters and you go in and you have to defend. I accept it's their job, but I have to think that to some degree there must be some psychological trigger that they're afraid also for their own lives. Are
the black men that shoot each other.
And I agree.
Listen, my hometown of Akron, Ohio just had the latest of craziness, the number of bullet holes in the young black male that was running away.
No, it is. It's frightening. It's frightening every which way. And
they have training. So here's what I'm telling you. They have training. Mm-hmm. I believe they are scared. But the reason that they continue to do this is because they're not held accountable. That's why.
That's true too.
It really took, in the George Floyd case, somebody videoing an officer standing on someone's neck, or, kneeling on someone's neck for 8 minutes in order for him to be held accountable. One of my clients who was recently shot and killed, he was actually drafted out of high school to the Mets. He had a huge future ahead of him. Things happened in his life. He's parked at a hotel. Police thought that, I don't know what they thought. He tried to pull away. They didn't have a reason to stop him. He's like, I'm out of here. And they're like, no, you're not. He had no gun in his car. He was shot and killed 5 times. They shot him
5 times. Oh my God.
So I don't, and they can be scared all they want, but that is why people think it's okay to shoot, because we allow the people in power
to shoot,
to do it too. Nobody in a mental hospital would be shooting each other if police didn't arrive with guns.
That's true too.
So what are they doing? So those are the big issues that I see. But I think you're right
how would you remedy it though? What do you think? What would be your solution? Because you face that every day. So
I'd like police to be spending more time. I said this on Court TV the other day. The whole Parkland shooter, kids online looking up songs to play while murdering people. He's on YouTube watching these kind of videos, making comments. I want police officers spending less time pulling people over, smelling marijuana, putting dogs on their car, shooting at people, checking on parked vehicles. Please become more invested in protecting us from these online psychopaths that are going. We've seen a pattern of behavior from these mass shooters. They all, there's a profile.
There is a profile.
It's almost like we need a transformation of the police force from an outside
Side,
physical presence to that, smarter utilization of time and resources and technology.
Yeah,
It's
and
not like these things aren't out there. That's what makes me crazy about it.
Because there is a pattern. I mean, she's right. You hear it over.
Highland Park, Highland
Kids
Park.
all look the same. There's like these 17 to 25-year-old white man, pathetic, kind of a loser. Maybe on the spectrum, tons of birth trauma, but they're all out there making these kind of statements to people. I remember the Aurora shooter was talking to somebody too before these girls. They talked to girls. They say they're going to kill everybody. I want police funding to go towards that, not bullets. I really do. They don't need to be interacting with people. I mean, I would say, bill me for a speeding ticket. I really don't need to be pulled over for this. You're wasting everyone's time. You're creating traffic and really unsafe conditions by approaching people who may have a gun and you might have a gun. Just sleuth online and keep us safe from these people, please.
Well, we're heading towards open carry. Okay.
I in the gas station the other day with the gun. I mean, I couldn't believe my eyes. I stayed as far back as I could from him. What if that just goes off? I mean,
what do I say? Look, I say that all the time. Open carry to me, at least I know who's got and who doesn't got. And if you got, I'll just kind of stay over here until you pull away from my car. Because I don't even want to risk tripping. God forbid your coffee goes on the guy. Because you have stand your ground also in Florida. So it could get pretty freaking crazy. And, you talked about accountability, Rach. And, listen, where you grew up and in your home and where I grew up in my home, and I think most of our homes, there is accountability. That's why it's so fascinating to see people continuing to win these primaries based on the big lie. How is that going on? And I'm interested in your opinion on how far can we really take it, or how far do we need to take it to hold Trump accountable. I mean, for what he did. I mean, that whole thing on January 6th doesn't happen if the big lie from the get-go doesn't trickle down. I mean, I don't need the Justice Department to tell me that as a voter, but I mean, how much farther do you think there would be literally armed conflict in parts of Georgia, led by Marjorie Taylor Greene, if there was actually an attempt to put Trump in shackles?
She's not coming to Atlanta. I mean, she's not going to hang out here. I mean, she's not in the city of Atlanta. There's a clear, it's blue. I mean, so she can go out to her little farmland, 100 miles away and preach to the cows, but no one cares in Atlanta. She's not going to have much support here. And she's got a lot of people who are armed and crazy that feel the opposite. So what you were saying before, Barry, what's also really concerning about guns and stuff is that people don't have any training. And so what you see, and you don't see people strictly aiming anymore. It's I hate you.
Sure. Spraying, man. Yeah.
Exactly. Police too. But I'm more scared of being shot by a stray bullet than I am by someone purposely coming up to me and shooting me, just because people are reckless with their guns. But yeah, that's, I guess, an issue that many people, whether you're liberal or conservative in Georgia, it's just a state where people love their guns.
I mean, I grew up, I have to admit, I'm as Democrat as they come, but I grew up with a household of guns. Yeah. My mother was a shooter. She used to rifle. We had rifles in our house. We used to go out. We had 5 acres. We used to go out shooting and practice on targets.
It was a different gun. It was a different gun. It was a different attitude about the gun.
But you don't take those weapons out, and they're in a case, and you don't I don't know.
What Rachel was pointing out, though, Ruta, is I got you, Don. What Rachel was pointing out, the Ruta, is what we've talked about on the Green Room many times. It's a separate states of America right now, and within states, urban, that rural. Georgia, very much like Florida, in your urban centers, they're just completely different than the Panhandle, than Marjorie Taylor Greeneville, wherever the hell she's from, right?
That red base,
and it's the imposition of that segment on the urban segment, quite frankly, that I think will be the teller of where we're going in our primaries, right? In 3 weeks here in Florida, by the way, Nikki Fried's making one last, big charge. And we'll see if the Kansas, so to speak, effect of really women making sure that women's rights are protected.
I know are going to rise because even, and this is, I think, something that Nikki Fried or any woman right now running for office has to stand on, is, you know, women's rights, because that Roe v. Wade issue is just beyond anything of my comprehension.
No, it's making our country a theocracy. It's making our
it's
country a
insanity.
theocracy, and you know, it's
I'll
scary.
be a theocrat, and what I want to say is, this is where I become so far left, I'm right. A lot of these like school shooters and a lot of the people in my world that wreak havoc on everybody else should probably never have been born. Their parents had no intention of caring for them or providing them with whatever they would need to live a lawful life. And so I just find it so messed up that we're saying that people can't, you know, get an abortion. I'm like, I would like to pay some people to
have one.
No, people ask me about my opinion of when a, you know, fetus really becomes a baby, this, that, whatever. And listen, as a doctor, I respect everybody's rights, okay, to make that decision within their own head. To me, it becomes when the mother buys into her own personal health and the health of what she's carrying inside of her. If she smokes, I got it.
Like, I mean, there's no argument any which way.
Right,
it's her body.
Right.
Everybody's body is their own.
If you smoke, then I advise you to stop. If you drink, then I advise you to stop drinking. You start to use the cleanest of food and water. And I mean, that's just when you buy into it, right? But if you don't buy into it, what can happen? And Rach, I got you so far left that you're right. You know, I got it. And it's a tough sentiment.
Even with that, here you go. You have the far right, which is like so pro-life. And then you have a lot of the policemen, like you said, like, or people randomly just opening with guns. And the fact that the gun is a weapon that takes away life, yet they're so pro-gun, it's such an oxymoron.
Yeah, you're cool once you're here. You're cool once you're here. You're fair game for a shot from us. But
yeah.
Well, no, and the paradox is in the states that are the most restrictive in that world of you know, pro-life, anti-abortion, whatever. They're the ones that aren't supporting their social services.
And there's
from the get-go.
I don't want to support. I want smaller government. That's the thing. I want smaller government. I don't want people to continue to have children when they have no basis, or, you know, they can't take care of what they have.
Yeah.
Because that's how they end up in jail. I mean, when I meet my clients' parents or mothers, usually, I'm like, oh,
single moms.
Yeah, single moms who don't hold their kids accountable because they're, I don't know, because they're trying to be the mom, the friend, the dad. They don't know what they're trying to be because they're trying to be everything. They should never had them. People become grandparents at like 30 years old. I mean, it's unfathomable.
Listen, living the life that you lead and seeing what you see, and we could talk to you for hours. I will give you the stock line that I give to many of my patients in the clinic, TG4C. Thank goodness for cannabis. It allows you to go to work every day. And listen, to anybody that says that this gal isn't living her own personal PTSD experience as she goes through life, and handling it with dignity, aplomb, grace, gorgeous, and I mean it. But what you're seeing every day is going to impact upon you the rest of your life. What you're going to be doing at 60 is going to be influenced by what you've seen in the last 10 years, right? So you should have the right and the ability to not need Zoloft or Ativan or Ambien or drink too much, because you're doing great for people out there, people that need you. And once again, it ain't easy to see it. It's very much, Ruta, like when I was doing emergency medicine, a similar slice of life that very few people see. So I salute you, Rachel. Keep doing your thing. And give us a shout out about your law firm and your Court TV appearances and all that type of stuff.
Right now?
Yeah, because we have to wrap it up.
Believe it or not, it's a half hour already.
I'm going to come back for another episode eventually.
Yes,
absolutely.
I want to say, well, okay, I'll end with this because I don't really care about my law firm or anything else. What I want to say as an end thought, okay, is that with Brittany Griner, I want every legislator in the United States to care as much about, I mean, if they're willing to trade an arms dealer for a girl for a little bit of cannabis, I want them to release every person in the United States who's currently in jail or prison for marijuana, because that would be the right thing to do. It's an optics. They're doing it for optics. And it's like, you care about somebody in Russia who's incarcerated for this when you've incarcerated hundreds of thousands of people.
Give
Give them their freedom back.
And mostly African Americans.
Oh my
on that
God.
commute. Yeah.
Well, of course, it's all
to make
racial,
sure
socioeconomic.
We have to have her back. 'Cause,
No,
yeah,
we'll
we'll have to do a take 2. on
And
you.
listen, if you want to
Yeah.
wrangle me in for a court TV appearance about Brittany Griner as the
Oh
person.
yeah, I will.
No, my point is, I think we can utilize Brittany's case to accentuate that cannabis is here. It's going nowhere. It needs to be understood, utilized appropriately, right? Further researched. There is a discussion that can be built upon the negativity of Brittany's situation, and I'd hate to miss that opportunity. So, surely anything that I can do to add to the legitimacy of the medical discussion, I'm happy to do. That's it.
She's supposed to have the last word.
I know.
Dr. Berry.
I gave her a chance, but how humble it is that you won't even promo yourself. But I know you set up your own office and it was great. And
Yeah. If you ever get in trouble in Atlanta, call me, So
yeah. Well, listen, with the underground, is it still the underground up there and all that? That's still the big place to go?
No, so that's
no,
kind
of course not.
Kind of
That was like 40
That was like
years ago.
4 years ago. I mean, it's like a ghost town, but I don't go out much. Talking about the PTSD, I stay inside after like 9 p.m. So I'm good.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, if I'm up past 10, yeah. All right. Well, listen, watch for Rachel like Court TV. We will have you back.
Yeah, we'll definitely have her back. She's awesome.
Absolutely.
And for our tuner people that are listening, yes, thank you for the Compassionate Cannabis shirt. And we will see you all back here next week for another episode. Everybody stay safe.
See ya.
Woo!